All right, we are back with Officer Dana Cato, going through the book, inshallah. But more importantly than just going through the book, we're just getting to know Officer Cato and his experiences, more than just the book. But also, we've touched on this the last couple of times. About a month from now, you'll be in Kansas City.
I will. Yep. I'm going out to Military Writers Society banquet to receive an award on the book that was selected by a committee. So kind of excited about that. See what that's going to be all about. I don't know. Might be a big deal. Might be a little teeny thing. I don't know. We'll see.
It'll be great. It'll be great, and certainly well deserved. Okay. Last time we were introduced to a mall.
Yes.
And it was sort of the last piece of kind of setting the stage for everything. It was, I mean, there were already a lot of ups and downs and a lot of stuff happening. It's kind of odd to say that getting hit with mortars, driving through the red zone, having your pool blown up, all of that's still just setting the stage, but it was because it kind of had the story arc of you having this realization in the chapter called The Awakening, which I think if somebody was just looking through this, they would think The Awakening meant like the mighty U.S. or whatever. No, it was you. It was you. And your relationship with the Iraqis and the Gurkhas. We met the Gurkhas, love the Gurkhas. And then the kind of the car bombing and SAFE and how that impacted you and how it frankly didn't impact him.
Right.
And because his whole attitude towards it was, inshallah, like, meh. And that was his life. Whereas for you, it was crazy. It's a car bomb.
Right.
People are, got into the history. You made it a point to learn about the history of Iraq and the Sunnis and the Shia and the Kurds and kind of where everybody fit. And then Amal helped you out a lot with that.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was all, everything in Iraq is a puzzle. Just like this book, it's a puzzle. So little pieces keep coming together one at a time, surprisingly, one at a time. And as they come, surprisingly, they fit, right? It's not like I have to look for it anymore. It's starting to just weave its way into the picture. And everything's starting to come together. And as everything starts to click, it starts to make a little bit more sense to me as we move forward.
But even that couldn't prepare you for the Hussein family.
Nothing could prepare you for the Hussein family. I don't care where you come from, what your background is, what country you're from. If you didn't understand the inner working of Saddam Hussein and his family and the hold that he had on that country and the type of people that they were in their sadistic way of thinking, no one could be prepared for what the Saddam Hussein regime, especially his family, had been and was doing to the people in that country.
And this is gonna make this chapter interesting to go through because there are some graphic details. Not you don't give graphic details, but there's enough. I mean, you certainly could have, but there's enough in there that not sure how much we're actually going to directly reference, but you'll anyone listening or watching will completely understand. I mean, I just read it, and again, this was a couple paragraphs, maybe 2-3 pages. You could have filled up a whole book with this if you want, just on a handful of incidents involving them. But we'll get into those. But just kind of a viewer warning.
Yeah, it's this chapter's tough. There's a couple of chapters that are tough because of who these guys were, what they were allowed to get away with, the power that they had. And this is what happens. This is what we get to see in real world situations when power goes unchecked, right? And it goes on. in other countries today where power goes unchecked, and it's just things that are happening that we just don't know about or think about. I always knew of Saddam Hussein as the president of Iraq, a militaristic leader of that country, and that's the way he ran it. The sadistic side, I did not know. The power he had, unchecked power that people blindly followed, I did not know that existed either until I got over there and started to realize who he was, what his family was, and the hold that he had on the people of Iraq. It was simply stunning to me as an American living in a free society with the 10 Bill of Rights that gives me the right to do all kind of stuff. It just blew me away.
And we'd always heard brutal dictator, but like what does that mean? And we learned, and if you didn't learn at the time, you'd certainly learn from reading this book.
Well, I think for us, or for me and you who've studied history throughout the world, every dictator we've ever heard of was brutal in some fashion.
Correct.
Right? But this steps to a level that just, like I said, it's just mind-blowing.
It's tough. Well, before we get into that, you kind of go back into, you take us back a little bit. It says 5 months earlier. One thing that I don't know, I highlighted this, was you talked about trying to clear out insurgents. And it says, here I use the word insurgent lightly because most of the killing and turmoil was really between the Shia and the Sunni, wondering who was going to get in control of the country. So I think that, and maybe that's because we didn't care. It wasn't really relevant to us if the Shia and the Sunni were killing each other. We just kind of always thought it was us fighting them. And even in the aftermath of this, it was the Sunni and the Shia, which we did talk about in an earlier episode. So it was still mostly them still fighting each other?
Well, I probably worded that a little wrong. Where it could get confusing, and I understand that. The Sunni and the Shia were arguing over who was going to get control of the country, as far as, like we discussed, reservoirs and territories.
And you talked about it then.
Yeah, and energy and this and that, that was going on. They were truly arguing and fighting over that. There was an insurgency going on at the same time that at that time was not a majority of Iraqi people. They had come from the outside, and I'm talking about Al-Qaeda in specifically, right? That they were the ones doing these car bombs at the gates. They were the ones setting these IEDs into place. So it wasn't a Sunni Shia Iraqi effort at that time, even though they fell on a Sunni Shia side. The Al-Qaeda did as well, right?
Yeah, Bin Laden and Saddam.
Correct.
Should have been. Maybe were bitter enemies just based on their
absolutely
religious affiliations.
So there was a lot of dynamic going on there that I was still trying to grasp. But infrastructure-wise, the Sunni and the Shia, Iraqi citizen-wise, they were fighting pretty hard over that. As far as disrupting the entire situation, killing American soldiers, killing Iraqi civilians, that was your insurgency that was going on at the time. That was Al-Qaeda that was actually getting in there and causing all that damage. So you had a lot of different actors in this situation going on. And the Army and the Marine Corps and the military in general, they're trying to play this delicate game of, okay, how do we settle these tribal Sunni Shia arguments, fighting over reservoirs and power and this and water and that, and at the same time kill this insurgency without killing the wrong people.
So were most of the Al-Qaeda insurgents from out of the country?
They were.
So you're in Iraq.
Yes.
U.S., obviously not Iraqis, fighting Al-Qaeda and insurgents, also not Iraqis.
Correct.
While the people who are Iraqis are fighting, the Sunni and the Shia are fighting each other for control. It's just a crossroads of...
It's crazy. And here you got the American soldier, the American Marine, the American whatever part of the military you were that was standing there going, wow, how do I do this? How do I get with the tribal leaders to make sure that this reservoir continues to give water to both sides, and at the same time keep this guy from Syria or Saudi Arabia from blowing it up? So it was just it was incredible, and I don't think the same kind of thing was going on in Afghanistan too. You're dealing with the same situation there. All this tribal stuff, people wanting to get their piece of the pie. The countries are about to start changing, or at least we thought they were, and everybody wanted to be on top when things settled out. But then you had that one faction that was trying to destroy every aspect of what was going on, and that was your actual insurgency.
Gosh, what a mess.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of laid the backdrop for the deck of cards that anybody around during that time knows the deck of cards. And just to explain for those who don't know what it is.
The deck of cards was given out so that you could understand that the Iraqis and the Americans, the people that were over there looking for Saddam and his regime, who these people were. And they ranked from highest to lowest. Of course, Saddam being the ace of spades, and then it kind of came down to the lowest guy, who was probably, I think, like the two of diamonds. I can't remember, two of clubs, whatever. But that's who we were looking for in order, and each one had a price on their head. So, you had some bounty hunters over there too that came from out of countries too to look for these guys, because it really didn't matter who caught them.
Right, right.
You were getting the money, right? So, and that included Iraqis too, who were not. Some of them were sneaky about how they turned them in and got money for them, and that was going on too.
Well, that was sort of the point. I mean, let's be honest. The bounty wasn't for the U.S. Army.
No,
the bounty was to encourage people close to him to turn on him.
Correct.
And do that. Correct.
I can't remember what the bounty on Osama bin Laden's head was. It was unbelievable. There were bounty hunters from, I think it was 69 countries looking for him, including people out of the United States, right? So you put a bounty out, bounty hunters are going to come. So with all of this interaction and everything going on, with all these inner fightings over structure and trying to stop this and stop that, I am still amazed to this day that at some point the whole system didn't collapse and a civil war broke out. I'm really shocked it didn't happen.
So do you think the U.S. is to credit for that, or
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
100%. I think everything that Ambassador Bremer put into place. I think General Petraeus was up in the north of Iraq, was in Mosul, in that area. He was fantastic, had a great handle on things. I think General Franks, they were doing the right things that needed to be done, and kept it under control. There were mistakes that were made, and they knew those mistakes had been made, and they were doing everything they could to try to fix them. And that wasn't going to happen easily either. But I don't think if it hadn't been for their control, I believe this thing could have just gone into total chaos. And it did go into total chaos, and we'll see that, but not in the manner that I'm speaking about.
Right. Where the whole country just breaks down.
Right.
Okay. So you had mentioned this before about people thought Saddam was in Syria, and you did say we know that they did escape to Syria, but they weren't allowed in, and they were told to go back home.
Right. So nobody knew where they were, and everybody was afraid he was coming back to power. I mean, they truly, truly believed he was coming back to power. Mainly him. I didn't hear much about the sons, but they really felt like this guy's coming back to power. And there was even real intel that had been put out by the U.S. Army that Saddam had been seen driving around Baghdad. Now, I'm not going to lie to you about this. Saddam had what you call a lot of body doubles too. And if you're a 7-foot Iraqi with a mustache, it's not easy to mix this guy up, right? I mean, because they didn't look so much dissimilar that would have been easy to go, that could be him, that could be him. So rumors were flying, things were flying around everywhere. I wouldn't doubt that he wasn't in Baghdad at a time. I mean, Baghdad's got a lot of people in it, you know, and they were moving all the time. So
But you mentioned that before, where when all of the things with the WMD came down, and one of the things was, oh, it was buried in Syria, and you made the point on an earlier episode, they're like, they wouldn't even allow him in. So
would not.
the idea that it was, they would keep his WMD but not let him in just seems a little
way far fetched to
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Way far fetched.
And you mentioned it again. You said it a second ago. We talked about it in your conversations with Amal. Was how everybody just said he's coming back. Like,
He's
he is
you
coming
know,
back.
no matter what you think, Cato, no matter what you think, you America will not catch this man.
I think America at least didn't know anything, for the most part, about Uday and Qusay Hussein until this war happened. Didn't really know much about them. Hadn't really heard their names much. And then they were in the news, and then you saw the articles, and it was just, and then everybody said, "Oh yeah, they're worse than Saddam, potentially." But it's almost kind of like, well, why hadn't we heard about them before? But and this is where this does get, a little, I'll say explicit, but he was known throughout Iraq for raping of girls as young as 12. This is Uday. Was he the older or younger son? He was the older.
Yeah.
He was the older son. And murdering them afterwards. You said the stories you were told made your skin crawl. Some you could undoubtedly corroborate, and others had been said within deep circles of the Ba'ath Party. And if they were not true, they became a scare tactic. I'm certainly not gonna prod you for details on that.
You're
but
definitely going to need to read the book if you
Yeah.
want to hear what they did, because it is bad. It is bad. It's very graphic. They were evil's not even a word I want to put out there for this. And you're right. No one knew who these two guys were until this came about, and then we started getting the stories from the people. And sadly, someone like Uday who would go around and rape a Muslim woman to their family, they become no good anymore, right? They're not good for marriage. They're not good for this. And we see this in the news. We've seen this in the news here in America,
Yeah.
where Muslim families have tried to do honor killings on their own daughters for this type situation. That's exactly what would happen over there. So it was, and they knew it. And they would do this he would go into weddings where they were getting married and take the woman.
that's
And it just,
Gosh.
yeah, and it gets even worse from there.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
I mean, we're skimming the top of the ugly. It gets worse.
we're skimming the top by kind of our muted versions of what's in the book, and even this book is you talk about probably 2 or 3 examples of hundreds or thousands of
Right.
examples. So even the book is just glossing over it. But every time we said since the very beginning, we're not going to do a book report. We're going to, and we kind of do, which is good. It's great. But this is one where, yeah, you're definitely going to need to read the book, just because it's just not. We don't want.
This
to go
is
into it.
unchecked power at its worst.
Yeah, and you said that in one example, he went to schools and colleges, and he would go to parties and kidnap girls.
And I won't even use the word kidnap. They knew you either went with them.
Yeah, they didn't have a choice.
Yeah, that's it.
And we don't need to get into how he kidnapped or abducted, took about 20 young women. But after the abuse, said he dressed them up in, got them all dressed up and made up as if they were going to attend a ball, brought them into a large dining room with a table full of extravagant food and allowed them to eat like queens. Soon after, Uday excused himself, went behind a two-way mirror, after locking the women in the room and released his 2 Siberian tigers in the room to kill and devour the guests.
Let him go. Yeah.
That is insane.
And he'd watch it and record it. And he had these 2 Siberian tigers. He also had a bunch of lions too, as well, that he fed people to on the regular basis. And that's just, once again, evil, just unchecked evilness going crazy.
You said that the lions were kept in the green, like they were
out.
They were there.
Yeah, we
even when
could
you were
walk by.
there.
I could go by and see them every day, and they pay me no attention. But
Hold on. You talk about that in a second, which absolutely blew me away.
Okay.
Like, aside from the evil stuff, that was, I can't wrap my head around what I know you're about to talk about. But you did say, real quick, you did say that you saw with your own eyes human remains.
Oh yes, yeah,
In the lion
yes,
cages.
no doubt.
Said he'd put his victims in small boxes so that overnight, so they couldn't really move the next day to fend off the lions, as if they could anyway.
So set kind of in a little military compound within the green zone that was an Iraqi little military compound, and that's where his lions were. Well, you could see these little small boxes. Kind of reminded me, and I think we talked about when I went to SEER school, POW school.
Yeah.
They put me in one of these and put a sack over your head, and you kind of sit, Indian style.
Can't straighten your legs.
Can't straighten your legs, can't do anything. Well, these were even tighter. These were almost being like put into a box. So that when you were pulled out of that box, you can't, everything in you is dead from here down. Just asleep. Like you fall asleep on your arm, you wake up, you can't move. Your whole body's like that. So they take them and they would throw them in these lion cages, and they couldn't fend for themselves at all. And I thought, that's just not true. Although I'm looking at these bones and I'm going, some of those bones are human bones. But I've stood by the lion cage, and the lion come up to me, pay me. It'd be three lions. There's daddy lion, mama lion, other cubs, and pay me no attention. A Shia Iraqi would walk by, and that lion would lose its mind.
Yeah, this was the part where that I didn't mean to interrupt you earlier, but this is the part that just, it all blew me away. But this is crazy.
It convinced me at that point that was their main source of food that they wanted the most.
And the lions knew the difference between an American and a Shia.
They could smell it.
Did it know the difference between a Sunni and a Shia?
I would think. I can't really speak. I just know that's who was around when these things were acting, and they were scared of them. They were scared of them. The Shia that went over there with me, that would walk that way, they were scared of them.
Yeah. Who wouldn't be?
Because they knew, they knew. And
so did them all ever?
She never went over there.
Okay.
But I listen to these stories, and they tell me these stories, and I think, but when I see them and I see their faces and I see their reaction, I go, man, this is real. To them, this is so real.
And you saw the boxes, and you saw the human remains.
Everything, all the circumstantial evidence was there.
It's amazing that they just ignored Americans.
Yeah. Didn't bother us at all. None of us. I think there was a couple of us standing there one day. There was this Army female soldier that had come over, and she was stationed out at the airport. She came into the green zone to get a little relaxed time, hang out by the pool. They let them do a little bit of that. Well, she came over to watch the lions. I remember I had gone over that day. I can't remember if I was with Denny or not. I may have been. And the lion walks up to her at the cage. She's standing to my left. He looks at her, and she's looking at the lion, and then the lion turns around like it's going to ignore her and sprayed her. And soaked her from top to bottom.
Oh, no.
And she was just standing there like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. And it was, that was quite funny. But no aggression. None outside of that.
But as soon as a Shia would come anywhere near it.
They would look around you. They would walk around you. They would look around you. You knew what they were pinning in on.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was strange, to say the least.
I'll bet. All right. So the story about the Siberian tigers and the soldier, was that true? Then this one we can talk about.
I was told this, okay, because I wanted to know what happened to the Siberian tigers. Well, Across from me there was a monument called the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Actually, had been built after
Oh, in Iraq?
in Iraq.
Oh,
it was
okay.
built after the Iran War. Well, it had a big cage in it you could walk around. Well, I was told that they put these two tigers in there. That's where they put them to keep them away from everybody else, and then put two soldiers on to guard them. And I was told this by a high-ranking soldier in the military over there, that those two knuckleheads that were guarding them got hold of some whiskey one night and got to drinking it, and one decided he was going to pet the tiger. And when he reached in there to pet the tiger, he lost his arm. The other one shot and killed the tiger. Shot and killed one of the tigers. Now, I never saw these tigers. I never got to see them personally. If there's any truth to that story, well, then I know what happened to those soldiers. So, it's didn't turn out well for them. But
So these are Iraqi soldiers
no,
or American soldiers?
American soldiers. Yeah. So, yeah. That's certainly because I was like, what happened to these tigers? Well, funny enough, and then they tell me this story, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? So
That's actually one of the more believable stories in this chapter, though.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
But see, they when they went to these, Uday and Kusei had palaces too,
Yeah.
and in their palaces were all these type things on videotape. See, they taped all this stuff, so it's real. It was there, and they had bottles of what is the big champagne? Dom Perignon, is it? What is it called? They had massive bottles of that, massive $1,000 bottles of wine. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff they had in their palaces. It was crazy.
You said Uday was also in charge of the soccer team, the
Yes.
national soccer team.
He was.
And if they didn't do well,
No, he would bring these guys. This is terrible. He'd bring these guys back if they'd lose, and he'd hang them upside down, barefooted, and he'd beat the bottom of their feet till they split open, and then expect them 2-3 days later to be back on a soccer field playing. Some of these teams in the Middle East are pretty good at soccer, so it sounds like there's no way this could be true and the international community not know. Well, it's true, and the international community did not know.
well, and one thing that I had learned about Uday was a lot of these dictators. Obviously, they have committed murders and whatever the atrocities themselves, but they have generals that go out and do it, or people that. But I had heard that Uday enjoyed doing it himself.
Yes.
He liked pulling the trigger himself. He liked being the one hitting them on their feet with the rods.
Yeah.
He enjoyed it. Like he didn't send other people to do his dirty work. To him, it wasn't dirty work. It was fun.
No, he did it himself. I mean, he cleaned the prisons out too, and he killed a bunch of prisoners just to make room to put more prisoners in. So, but this becomes a way of life for you when you've watched your father, when you watched his generals, when you, once again, goes back to Saif being raised in this environment. You're raised in this environment. This becomes normal everyday activity to you.
Gosh.
It's second nature. Life has no value. And in that part of Iraq, at that given time when I was there in the early 2000s, life had no value in Iraq, period. And I take that back to Saif saying, Inshallah.
Yeah.
There's no value in life. You either get to live it or you don't.
Gosh. I didn't realize that Uday had fallen out of favor with Saddam not too long before that.
Correct. Yep. So Saddam, I think it was his, he had a mistress that it was not Uday's mom, and he didn't like that very much, and that caused a big rift in everything. He ends up committing murder to one of Saddam's friends, and Saddam actually threw him in prison. And didn't stay there long, but he threw him in prison for murder. Yeah.
And then you go in and you talk a little bit about Kusei. He was a little bit more strategic, a little bit more
Lesser of three evils.
right, right.
If you want to say it. But
Less just less emotional, more. don't want to say tactical in what he did, but he was trusted to do a little bit more. You said he played a role in crushing the Shiite revolt after the 91 Gulf War.
Right.
And even though people assumed Uday was going to take over, most people really kind of thought it was going to be Qusay because he just seemed more. I hate to say responsible. I don't want to make it sound like I'm giving this guy accolades. But
He was fiscally responsible, money wise. He had a handle on the banking industry and where the money was and how things were going. He knew how that was running. So where you got Uday was more of a playboy. Qusay stayed at home, right, and kind of did his thing. So you had one that ran wild, one that could be as mean as he wanted to be, but stuck to the basics.
Qusay was trying to run the country, was trying to actually do what was in his way, right for the country, whereas Uday was just whatever was right for him.
Correct.
But you did say it's widely believed that Qusay was responsible for orchestrating the attempted murder of Uday, of his brother.
There's no doubt. And it doesn't matter who you ask over there, they would tell you that there was no doubt he tried to assassinate his brother. And it's like some movies that we watch where you got like The Godfather, where you got the Godfather, that you got the renegade son and then the one who's trying to keep, I'm not saying the good son, but he's trying to keep the family. And this one's getting out of control. And, well, he was like, you know what? He knew that Uday was next in line. He would have stepped into daddy's shoes. So Qusay was like, I think I'll just get him out of the picture now. It failed, but gave him a little permanent damage for the rest of his life.
That cane.
He had to walk with a limp the rest of his life, yeah.
And I know it sounds like we're kind of saying good things about Qusay, but we're not.
We're not. No, he's a terrible guy. Terrible guy.
And you even said that he was.
Maybe he was the one in charge of the soccer team. Maybe I mixed that up. But he was just as bad in his own right, and or either he was the one that killed all the prisoners to make room. Yeah, he killed the prisoners to make room to put more prisoners in.
He dealt with more of dealing with the nationals. Like he was more of the. Again, I hate saying looking out what's best for the country. In his interpretation of the Sunni Shia, the nationals who are in our way, who are keeping us from accomplishing what we want to accomplish, is the Hussein family / Ba'ath Party. It was more, again, I hate to say strategic, but it was, whereas Uday was like, I just want to kill you because I want to.
Yeah.
Gosh, so much. Then you touch on the battle for 5 hours that killed both brothers.
Yeah. People, so the brothers had gone into, I believe it was one of their uncles or one of their cousins and hide out in the house. And apparently while they were in there, they were raping the daughters and doing whatever. They were being who they were in the house. And finally, the head of the household, he got tired of it. And he walked out and walked up to a soldier and said, they're in my house. They're right there. And this is how the battle started. So people would say after this thing's over, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this now, well, they couldn't have killed them that easy. It was a 5-hour gunfight. I mean, it was not easy.
Right. It wasn't a 20-minute jump in.
No, sir. It was a dogfight. And eventually the Army overwhelmed them with firepower, won the thing, and killed them both. And but that's how they were found. And this guy literally was willing to sacrifice his family because of what they were going through. He would rather have seen them dead than to have to deal with what these two were doing to him inside this house.
And I assume they did die in the firefight.
I don't know that.
Was anybody surprised that the brothers were together?
No, as a matter of fact, what they were surprised of is that Saddam wasn't with them.
Really?
Yeah.
I figured that they would have kind of...
They thought all three of them were sticking together like a rat pack, right? And that wasn't the case. That was not the case at all.
Interesting. And you said that even though it happened, there they are. People didn't believe it. They thought it was wax figures. They thought it was staged.
Yeah, we take the Americans take the pictures, they put them on national TV. They lay their naked bodies out on slabs, covered pictures of what, and you could see the riddling in their body, the bullet holes that were in them, how many bullet holes they took, and people around me were going, "Well, that can't be real. It's got to be wax figures." The Americans are lying to us just to make because Saddam's not there, right? Saddam's not there. He protect his sons. So this has got to be an act. This has got to be something that's got to be put on. But I would tell you, as much as these two guys, the evil that they were, it must have been real for them to take the amount of shots they took and still continue to fight for that long. Because, I mean, their bodies, there wasn't a piece on their bodies that didn't have a hole through it.
Could most of those shots had happened after they were dead? Or do you think they were fighting while they were?
I think they
shot
fought
up?
until the last minute. There was a movie about a bank robbery down in Florida. It's called the FBI Stories. I think you could probably look this up. Happened back in the 70s. These guys had the same kind of mindset, like animals. They get shot, but they don't realize what's happened to them. And the guy in this story down there, one of the two, it was the same kind of firefight, but it was around a car. And the first shot went through the guy's heart, and they continued to fight.
What? How?
Just didn't know they were supposed to die. It's like you shoot a deer, and a deer does what?
Runs away.
It runs away. If I shoot you, what are you going to do?
I will die.
You will fall over.
Yeah.
Because your mind said, I'm supposed to be dead. Right? A deer doesn't know that. So a deer just takes off. A deer, you shoot a deer right through the heart, it runs. Now, it may not go 500 yards or 100 yards, but it's going to run. You're going to go. Listen, I was a cop on the street. I saw people get shot in the foot and die.
What?
Shot. I've been shot. I'm supposed to die. That's the human side of it. If you can get rid of that part of your mind, you can fight.
Wow. And it sounds like Uday and Kusei were a lot more aligned with animals than they were.
Well, look the way they
humans. Exactly.
acted and lived, right? So.
Now, you did say that there wasn't much joy around the compound afterwards. Is it just because of disbelief, or just it was kind of like what?
I think it was confusion.
It when I read this, it sort of reminded me of like when animals are taken out of the wild and rehabbed or whatever, and then they go to release them and they open the cage and they just stand there like,
right?
What now? Like they're not, yay, we're free. They don't take off running. They just kind of are like.
And that's what the people were. People on the compound were, and people in the street was like, we're confused. Number one, we're not really 100% convinced this is these guys. We're not 100% convinced the Americans just aren't trying to further this cause by saying, hey, they're dead, right? So there was just no jubilation. There was really nothing. It was just kind of stagnant. And I'm like, man, you guys ought to be thrilled. We just took out two of the worst guys in this country. And there was nothing. There was nothing.
Gosh. Well, so you got the news. You got the news that Saddam had been captured, and Bremer was gonna make a announcement the next day, and you had to kind of keep that information to yourself, and you had to tell the Gurkhas because of security and all that.
But this is one of the weirdest things, and when you talking about keeping things secret, during the Gulf War, when we got ready to attack Baghdad, I knew 2 days prior that we were attacking Baghdad, and I knew what day we were doing it and what time we were going to do it. Because I was standing in a room with the captains and admirals when on CD when they came up with this is what we're going to do. So we knew what was going to happen. And you can't tell anybody. Well, that was pretty easy to do. I'm in the middle of the ocean, right? I got no telephone, no email. We don't have any of that. So it's pretty easy to do. So in this case, I get a call that says, hey, you can't say anything, but they called Saddam last night. And Ambassador Bremer, in about 3 hours, is going to announce to the world that we got him. I can't say anything. But there was nothing stopping me at that point. I had a telephone in my hand. I had email. I could have told everybody I knew that, hey, this is fixing to happen in 3 hours. But I couldn't. I had to worry about what was the reaction going to be. Is it going to be one of these other stealth things? Are they not going to believe us? Is this, what's going to happen when this is announced? But like you said, I wouldn't tell the Gurkhas. So I got to tell my Gurkhas.
Gotta tell the Gurkhas.
And these people are looking at me with this blank stare in their face, like, and I figured it out. I'm like, they already know. I looked at it, I was like, how? Y'all already know. And I forgot how interconnected they were across the country. But they weren't saying anything either, right? They knew. They ain't told nobody. Not us. They told themselves. So I was kind of like, hey, man, these guys don't trust me I'm still trying
They hurt your feelings again.
Again. This is two times now. My feelings have been hurt.
By the Gurkhas.
I'm looking at the major. I'm like, how long we may have heard something last night, something. You
heard
may
something
have. Last night. I'm hearing about it this morning. So, wouldn't even come to me and tell me that. Even if they would have thought it was a rumor, they should have come and told me that, right? Maybe I could confirm it. Apparently I wasn't going to be able to, but so it was just weird having that knowledge and waiting, because the time difference between Iraq and America. So when Bremer wanted to announce it, he wanted to make sure it was at a time that everybody in this country was watching the news, right? So we had to sit on this thing for 3 or 4 hours.
I mean, that's some of the biggest news in the last 100 years.
Yes.
And you got it, and you and the Gurkhas, and you got it, and you just can't react or respond. Certainly not tell anybody.
Nothing.
Gosh.
But it must have been on my face, because especially Amal would look at me like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? You're different. I must have got quiet. And my wife will even tell you that. When something really gets on my mind, or if I get angry, I just shut up. So apparently they had gotten to know me enough to know that I never shut my mouth. So, I'm always blah, 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 blah. And then now she's like, what's wrong? Why are you not? What's going on? Something's going on. And she knew it. She sensed it. But I couldn't say anything to her, I was like, and I did tell her. I said, listen, there's some news coming. I can't tell you what it is. You're just going to have to wait a little while. But there's some news coming.
And eventually, they did celebrate.
Oh, they celebrated.
And so it was different than when Uday and Qusay, there was still this kind of like, but Saddam.
I think it was because, quite honestly, it went out differently. Okay? It wasn't just, hey, guess what? These two were killed. It made the news. It's on CNN. It's on Fox, blah, blah, blah. Here's the pictures. Here's this. Here's what the government's putting out. The ambassador didn't step forward and say that. Nobody from the government stepped forward and said that. This case was a big deal. They all went over to the convention center, which was right next door where we were. All the ministers went. Everybody involved with the government went. And it was a big deal. All the news media was invited. Al Jazeera. Every major news media outlet in the United States was there, and all over the world. There, BBC, the whole deal. This is now a big deal. And Bremer steps up to the podium and says, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. And the place erupted. And then they said, this is when we caught him, this is where we caught him, blah, 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 blah. And it went nuts. Nuts. And people just started screaming, and gunfire started erupting in the air, and it was just, it was crazy. The initial celebration of that, I would compare it to bigger than a Super Bowl win. Bigger, it was huge. The whole country went nuts. It'd be like America when they played Russia in hockey and beat them back in the 80s. It just went crazy. It erupted. It was crazy. You could hear outside the compound in the streets the people cheering, the gunfire going off. That's how they celebrated, by the way.
Yeah. So I'm so glad I mean, it's unfortunate, but I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I have always wondered when you see people shooting guns in the air, where do those bullets fall? Because you see it all the time. And it's like what happens to the bullets? And you said there were people ducking and diving for cover, and several Iraqi civilians, it says an untold number of Iraqi civilians were killed by falling celebratory fire on that day.
Absolutely. I mean, they wrote a song about it in the 70s. What goes up must come down.
But it's like you see it all the time.
All
it's
the
like,
time.
That's a lot of bullets that come down.
A lot of bullets. A lot. So you're just hearing this wham, wham, wham. You can see the yellow tracers going up.
Yeah, you
and,
mentioned that. And you said you saw that before you heard it.
Right.
Because the sound hadn't gotten there
so
yet.
all these yellow things start going. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, what? So I'm trying to put it, are we under attack? Are they mad?
Yeah, is
Because we
this
could call
good or
Saddam?
bad news for them?
Is this a terrorist thing coming? But then you could hear the screams or what sounded like not horror screams, but joyful outside, inside the compound, front of the convention center. And you remember what I told you, for every one of those yellow rounds,
That's right.
there's 5 behind it you can't see. So it was like one stream of yellow rounds going up, and I'm like, this isn't good. These are coming down somewhere. And it's all over the place, you know. I mean, it's outside the green zone, out in the red zone, out in Baghdad. So all those rounds are coming down somewhere. And yeah, a lot of people were hit. That round reaches a point where it completely stops. And it picks all that speed up coming back down. And yeah, they come down right on top of people. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
people didn't believe it, which is kind of expected. But I thought it was interesting that it wasn't it when a lot of them said they didn't believe it. It wasn't just because Americans wax figure body double. It was because they said Saddam would never act in such a cowardly manner. He would never let people touch him the way they were. He would never allow himself to look so bad and run down. So they didn't believe it, just like they hadn't with other things. But it was because they were like, he would never act like that.
Well, so this celebration, this is when I said, okay, they get it now. They finally get it. And then 2 days later, or that same day, they're showing video of Saddam being looked over by a medical professional, a doctor.
We've all seen that. We've all seen that video.
All everywhere. Opening his mouth,
Yep.
looking at his teeth, talking to him. He's talking back. He's not angry. He's not, he's just speaking. And that's when they stopped and started going, that's not him. He would never allow you to do this to him. That is not Saddam. That is you are tricking us again. Again, you are tricking us. Saddam would never allow that to happen. They didn't believe it. They really didn't believe it. And I'm standing there telling, like Amal, she didn't believe it. She goes, that can't be him. He would never allow somebody to stick their finger in his mouth and talk. He's not even angry, Kato. He's not. I'm like, Amal, that's him. And he did look bad. He'd been hiding in a spider hole for 30 days, right? So they just didn't believe. He was disheveled. He was confused. He looked really ragged in this video. And I get it, but it was him. Now, how are we going to prove that to him? Well, they're going to invite the ministers to go see him once they get him put over into Camp Victory, which is at the Baghdad airport. So about a week later, it's going around. Saddam's been captured. Okay, maybe he has. We don't believe it. He wouldn't allow this. He's more dignified than that. He would have fought. That was another thing. He would have never given himself
His sons
up.
didn't.
He would have died fighting, just like his sons. So this cannot be Saddam. And I think that was the bigger issue, that this guy who held all this power over us, who scared us to death our entire life, who was such a big, bad wolf,
Going back decades and decades.
is now nothing.
Yeah.
There's no way he would be reduced to this. He wouldn't allow this to happen. Well, he did. So, I don't know what else to tell you, but I think that was the biggest factor. And I think for the most part, the people who had been exiled that came back in from the government side knew they got him. That was him. But it was people that had lived in Iraq that were now in the government that were having the hardest time believing, listen, these people, we'll get into this a little bit later, but, they always thought people were trying to trick them, people were trying to fool them, right? All the time. So I couldn't understand why they wouldn't believe it, but, even Dr. Alawi told me, who became the president over there, prime minister over there, that they had been oppressed for so long that anytime you told them anything or tried to do anything good for them, they thought you were trying to trick them. That's just where they were in their minds. Plus the rumor mill. I told you about the rumors that would run and what they would believe. Nobody knew what to believe. So they're going to take the ministers over to the airport and they're going to let them see Saddam and talk to him. And I went with them.
Oh.
I went with them. I'm not going to tell you how I got in there. I'm not going to tell you how I ended up in the convoy with them or why or how, because it was a little underhanded. But I got in there, and I didn't get to step into where he was. I got to stand outside and listen to them go back and forth, and they wouldn't get close to him. They were scared to step up toward his cage. He wasn't. Had him in what seemed like a loincloth, but looked more like a diaper to me. That was it. They didn't want to commit suicide. And at that point now, he was loud, boisterous, and screaming. And I asked one of the Iraqis outside, who was one of the guards with one of the American soldiers. And he said, yeah, they're just telling each other, your mother's a goat, your mother's a dog. I will come back and be the president of Iraq. I will. This was my republic.
It's defiant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. With them. Yeah, he absolutely was. He remained defiant after that, even through his court time. But at that particular time of capture was his time of weakness that set the country into a frenzy of this can't be him. This man would never stoop to this point of lowness. Never, ever.
All right, I have a question that's related. Everybody, when it happened, when he was captured, he was in the spider hole. There's video of it. A lot of us have heard about camel spiders. Why is it called a spider hole?
Well, he just had a hidden hole back there. He had a bunch of places he could hide. They just called it a spider hole. It didn't really have anything to do with a spider, okay?
Because I'm picturing this camel spiders.
Camel spiders are huge, though.
God, have you seen a camel spider?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, Marines used to take them, put them on their tongues,
No.
and they can't harm you.
Oh, they can.
And you can almost see through them. They're kind of crystal. But here's a funny thing about Saddam on that particular day. And I get this strictly from the government, the Iraq government, that the army had searched everywhere, all over his property, looking for him. This is where they were, back in his hometown.
And they knew, just intelligence, they knew he was there.
They had been tracking him, so things were starting to pin in. And I think they had some information from after they had killed his sons. I think they got some more intelligence out of that. But they went back into his house. And according to the general secretary, his wife told them, go back and look again.
Really?
And they went back out and they found him. And I'm to understand she got the reward. And hauled it to Jordan.
Really?
That's what I was told. Now, I can't say that to be truth, but that's what I was told by the Iraq government. She told them to go. You missed him. Go back out and look again.
So was that the first wife? Was that Uday's mom?
No,
that was the
Saddam's wife that he was married to at that particular time. Yeah.
the one who made Uday mad?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Go look again. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Man. Wow. Okay. That actually does it. Like we said at the beginning, this isn't the longest chapter, but it's not a short chapter either. But there's just some details that we just didn't want to.
Yeah,
didn't want to discuss.
Pretty graphic. But you come to the end of this chapter, and where I'm at the end of this chapter is, I'm truly thinking now. Okay, now that the government has come back from the airport, and they've come back into their area, and they've told everybody it's real. We got him. So now everybody's realizing the sons are dead. Saddam has been captured. The head of the snake's been cut off. Life's got to get good now. Things have got to start going upward. And they don't.
The ominous last sentence of this chapter was, I could not have been more mistaken.
Could not have been more mistaken. I thought, here we go. This is it. We're gone. It's good. Life's good. No.
Well, okay, don't go into this because obviously we're going to get into it. But just as a teaser, is it because of the void that was left, or is it battle? Well, I mean, I guess battling factions is because of the void. Is it the citizens were scared? Was it uncertainty?
It's going to be a big combination of all of that. The void is the biggest part. The void, that vacuum, is going to be the biggest part of all of this.
Do you think that vacuum was created by us, by Saddam's death? I mean, obviously Saddam's death, but us or the new Iraqi government not being able to kind of figure out, and while the Americans are kind of doing their best saying, hey, we set the table for you, and they just refuse to kind of put their differences aside and self-interest aside and do that? Or was it sort of like after the Gulf War when we were like, okay, all right, we're done, and just kind of didn't quite do enough?
This is one thing I really liked and respected about Ambassador Bremer when all this was said and done. The buck stops with me. It was his fault. He admitted it. Some of the things that he put into place, like disbanding the army, that was a mistake. How many people you put out of work, no jobs. The leadership is now gone because in a dictatorship, the military is the leadership.
And it makes sense why you would want to get rid of the Iraqi army, but
from a standpoint that we look at it,
right.
What we weren't looking at is, not all these people are bad.
And now you have a bunch of unemployed, angry at you, militarily trained people.
Some of these generals were really good people that hated Saddam. They just followed the line to move up to where they are.
You had no choice.
Well, he's not there now. Now we can't. Now we took that opportunity out. So now nobody's got jobs. The country's kind of collapsing back on itself. The people are looking for leadership, and there is no leadership. No one's stepping up yet because the government hasn't been formed. So we're sitting in a country with nothing.
So do you think we should have had a person in place? So the moment Saddam was captured, that person swooped in instead of Saddam being captured, and we say, okay, well, we have these ministers and we have this council, and so that's difficult to streamline. You think there should have been somebody temporarily just in place?
I think, and I'm giving you Cato's opinion.
Right. Sure.
Keeping in mind, I have a PhD in nothing. I think we should have left a military structure in place with generals that we could have sat on top of, that we would have found out through vetting, through talking to people who was the good fit. You would have had military control. You would have been able to control the streets. There wouldn't have been anarchy. You could have put martial law in for a little while. Our martial law worked for a little while until they got tired of seeing Americans. All right? It's time for us to control ourselves. We don't need you doing this anymore. So I think that would have been a better plan. It wasn't planned that way. It happened the way it happened, and we made some really, really bad mistakes. But here you go. We may end up in a situation again in the future. And if we do, there'll be lessons learned. And maybe we'll be smarter the next time around, right? But, yeah, I believe definitely if we would have left the military in place, even cut it down to the majors, just go ahead and get the colonels and the generals out of there. Start right there. At least you got some law and order in place. We got people employed. We're paying them to feed their families, you know. So but we didn't have that. None of that was there. It was just absolute. In the green zone, everything was controlled. In the red zone, it was chaos.
And we are definitely going to get into
Yes.
all of that. Okay. All right. Again, I've said this a few times. This is one you're definitely going to want to read the book, get a copy for yourself, because there's some stuff in there that we just didn't want to discuss, but you get the idea. Next chapter, Death of a President. What are we going to learn in this one?
Well, you'll start to understand what I talked about, where they rotated the president every 12 months, and there's some tragedy coming here. It's about to start ramping up a little bit more. So
They rotate every 12 months?
I'm sorry, every month there were 12 presidents, so every month a
Gotcha.
president rotated. So things are going to start to ramp up a little bit, and we're going to see we're going to see where Iraq, where we start to see conflict in the government of who really believes who's doing the killing and who's not doing the killing. Things are going to start to pick up a little bit. It gets kind of interesting, and I think the confusement of everything that's been going on is about to start to settle itself out. People are really going to start to understand where the underlying problem of the Iraq-American relationship is about to start.
Oh.
Yeah, I think you'll get a good handle on that.
So when you covered the Iraqi Governing Council in one of the earlier chapters, you did touch on, we're going to learn about them more later. We're going to hear a lot about them later. And you kind of alluded to some of that's happening and kind of touched on some of their agendas. Now you're going to start to see those really
you're going to start to see how that political part, that diplomatic part starts to kind of fall apart. Yeah, very much so.
That's exciting. And then after that, Catfish 126.
Catfish 126. That'll be interesting.
We might have a surprise for that.
We may have a surprise for that.
Hopefully
Absolutely.
Hopefully we do.
And listen, if you guys are watching this on the YouTube under Project 176, give it a like, give it a subscribe, put some comments down, let us know what's going on.
It is not Project 176.
I'm sorry, Project 1791. Man, it's been a long day.
It's still August.
Well, I tell you what the problem is. College football's coming this weekend, and I cannot get my mind off of what's coming up this Saturday. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
Project 1791. Let me say that again. YouTube at Project 1791. Thumbs up, subscribe. Let me know what you think.
Definitely. 1 month till he gets his award. Don't know which one.
Don't know which one.
But it's an award. Very well deserved. Please pick up a copy. It is amazing. You'll love it. And come back next time.
Thank you.